Good afternoon and welcome to the September Ordinary Council meeting. I'll now hand over to Councillor Greg James to perform a welcome to country.
Thank you, Mayor Sully and my fellow councillors. Firstly, I pay respects to my ancestors. I acknowledge our elders, both past, present and emerging. I would like to acknowledge the Yorta Yorta Nations and all its people whose land we are meeting on today. So on behalf of the Elders Council, the 16 family groups and the 8 respected tribes who proudly share in the status of traditional owners of this land, I say a very warm welcome to this wonderful country and waterways. Thank you, Mayor.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor James. Item 2, acknowledgement. We, Greater Shepparton City Council, acknowledge the Yorta Yorta peoples of the land which now comprises Greater Shepparton. We pay our respect to their tribal elders, we celebrate their continuing culture and we acknowledge the memory of their ancestors. Item 3, privacy notice. This public meeting is being streamed live via our Facebook page and made available for public access on our website along with the official minutes of this meeting. All care is taken to maintain your privacy. However, as a visitor in the public gallery, it is assumed that your consent is given in the event that your image is broadcast to the public. It is also assumed that your consent is given to the use and disclosure of any information that you share at the meeting, including personal or sensitive information, to any person who accesses those recordings or minutes. Item 4, governance principles. Council considers that the recommendations contained in this agenda gives effect to the overarching governance principles stated in section 9(2) of the Local Government Act 2020. And these principles are as followed, and they're listed 1 to 9 on page 6 of the agenda. Councillors, item 5, apologies, we're all on board today, so nil. Item 6, declarations of conflict of interest. Councillors, do we have any conflicts this afternoon? No, very good. Item 7, confirmation of minutes of the previous meeting. Councillors, are there any minutes of the previous meeting opposed? No, can I please have a councillor move that? Sorry, Adam.
Yes, Sally, I'll move that the minutes of the 15th of August 2023 council meeting as circulated be confirmed.
Very good, thank you, Councillor. Councillor, second that. Dobson. In favour? Motion carried, unopposed. Item 8, public question time, nil received. Item 9, deputations and petitions, nil received. Councillors, we now go to page 8 of the agenda, item 10.1, 2023 Seniors Festival Grant Program recipients. There is a recommendation. Can I please have a councillor put that forward as a motion? Councillor Brophy.
Thank you, Mayor Sully. I'd like to put forward the following recommendation, that the council note the successful applicants awarded funding under the delegated authority of the 2023 Seniors Festival Grants Program. Successful grant applicants were the Lions Club of Talamba Incorporated, $500, Shepparton Access, $500, Golden Valley Pride Incorporated, $500, Murchison and District Historical Society, $330, Shepparton Croquet Club Incorporated, $150, Golden Valley Seniors Association Incorporated, $500, and the Dookie Men's Shed Incorporated, $500. It gave us a total of $2,980.
Very good, thank you, Councillor Brophy. Can I have a councillor second that motion? Councillor Summer. Yeah. Councillor Brophy, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Sarley. The Seniors Festival has been running near on 40 years now, 41 years, and this particular program, I'm led to believe there might be over 100 events or activities planned for this particular region. And we put out the festival grants program to be funded, and the successful applicants, as I've just read out, receive funding in regards to that. I'm also very privileged to be on the Positive Ageing Advisory Committee, where the group of people that get together are very energised, focused and proactive, and advocate for those, I'd call them those with wisdom instead of seniors. So that's the way I term it. And nearly $3,000 here worth is really invested in to celebrate the Seniors Festival that's coming up. There's a number of events planned, as I said. I'm looking forward to getting along to as many as I can. The Senior Festival, it really does come to life. It comes to light as well. So it's more than just it's grey power. It's really power of the people. And look forward to attending a number of events. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor Brophy. Councillor Summer, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Sally. I'm very pleased Council has supported the Seniors Festival for so long. These are small amounts going out to the community, and they successfully spread it around their networks and create a lot better outcomes than we would achieve if we tried to do it without them doing the hard work. So well done to all of the applicants, and hopefully it is a successful vote for them and everyone can get along to the Seniors Festival.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor Summer. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? Councillor Adam.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So just quickly, that I'd like to also thank the state government for their contribution to this granting program.
Councillor Adam. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Councillor Brophy, any closing comments?
No, thank you.
Councillors, we will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried. Opposed? Councillors, we now go to page 13 of the agenda, item 10.2, 26 January Community Engagement Finance, May to June 2023. There is a recommendation. Can I please have a councillor put forward a motion? Councillor James.
Thank you, Mayor Sally. I would like to move the recommendation 10.2, 26th of January Community Education Findings, May, June 2023. But I also wish to make a recommendation change slightly different to what is printed on the agenda. Mayor Sally, and that's, and councillors, you have a copy of that in front of you, and and I will speak to the reasons why for removing the last point in my comments later. I'll read out the new recommendation, that Council from 2024-1 continue its advocacy to the Australian Government to change the date of Australia Day from the 26th of January to a more suitable date as soon as possible. Number 2, conduct an Australian Day Community Awards and Citizenship Ceremony event on 25th of January. Replace the Australia Day Small Town Grants Program with a Community Celebration Grants Program that provides funding for the Greater Shepparton community to hold their own celebrations on 23rd to the 25th of January or from the 27th to the 29th of January. And number 4, recognise in its communications that Australia Day held on the 26th of January remains Australia's National Day.
Thank you, Councillor James. Can I have a councillor second that motion, please? Councillor Brophy.
I second that.
Councillor James, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Sally, I will. January the 26th holds diverse and complex meanings, definitely for a whole range of community members. It is a national holiday, and that has only been in place for a short period of time. Prior to this, of course, it was only celebrated in New South Wales for obvious reasons of the First Fleet landing. Historically, there is a distorted viewpoint about the actual landing location, but the day is confirmed to be the 26th of January, where the conflicts happen. This particular day is extremely sensitive for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people with regards to the awful clashes that occurred. Consequently, this now is known as by our people as Invasion Day, or as a day of mourning, because the course of Aboriginal history, culture, and our existence and our connection to land, etc., changed somewhat. A lot of pain and hurt is surfaced on this day as a reminder, and it's not a good reminder from our cultural point of view of what happened on that day to our people, our culture, our existence as the rightful custodians of this remarkable country. I personally haven't celebrated this day because I was told by my elders and my community to say this is not a day for our people to celebrate. So I haven't done that. Last year, I took a brave decision for me to celebrate that day. And I went to that day on the 26th feeling with a number of emotions on how I would react on that day. But I'm glad I did, because the community of Shepparton and Maribna absolutely complimented me for being out there on that day too as well. So I felt I had an obligation to do that, for me mainly to see what that celebrations was all about. So I'm glad I did, because I got the feeling of that day itself. Mind you, I didn't feel totally comfortable about it, but I thought I was compelled to do it. As I said, I personally haven't celebrated this day out of respect for my people, in particularly my ancestors. My ancestors are the rock, are our rock. They are the foundation of what their contribution has been over the last 200 plus years, is our grounding is a grounding stone for us too as well. They were fronted with this scenario of fighting for and protecting their own land and habitat in existence, and this was forced onto them too as well in protection of the owners, the traditional owners of this land, the incumbents of this beautiful country were forced into that position. So the meaning of this day goes deep-seated into our emotions and our thought and our well-being and how we conduct ourselves here from here onwards. This has been a difficult day for me to celebrate because of the history of the past. It's very awkward for me in regards to my mates because I play football with them, I play cricket with them, but I can't celebrate that. But I never stop their connection to the Australian culture and the history. I am somewhat pleased to hear the strong opposition by our youth and our young adults. I'm very encouraged by that. Them saying to me, Councillor James, we don't want to support this day out of support for the history as well. So I'm encouraged by that as well. This, I believe, it is a generational change that is happening. Our community is saying, this day, we don't want to make sure that Aboriginal people feel uncomfortable on this day. We want you to make you feel comfortable as part of this community, how we can all celebrate together on a particular day which is comfortable for everyone. And recognise that this day is not reflective of our community and is extremely hurtful for my people. And we should ensure that no group of people feel uncomfortable about this particular day. So I congratulate the council on endeavouring to achieve a reconciled outcome where the community can celebrate this recognised day, but also our understanding of the feelings that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people have about this particular day and that particular date. Council, I believe, has approached this sensitive subject in a positive and proactive way, with a philosophy of approaching discussions and decisions in an incremental small steps. We had to do that in a small process so that we're not making that impact on our community. We had to stop, reflect, and do it in small steps. And I believe we have done that. And I believe we've been very sensitive in that way too as well. In 2022, a community stakeholder group held a series of meetings comprising Australia Day committee members throughout our region, key Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal groups, respected elders, and also we had councillors here attend that meeting as well. These meetings were conducted in a positive manner with healthy discussions, with viewpoints openly shared and respected from all participating members. And if I go back to that first meeting, and it was a historical meeting because it was the first opportunity that council, the Aboriginal community and interested groups and the Australia Day Committee did sit down and engage in conversations, and that's what we had to have. We have to have that conversation.
Obviously that's time. Have you got closing comment?
Can I get an extension of time?
That is the full extension.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I'll close.
Have you got, yeah, I'll leave you to have a closing comment.
All right, thank you. Okay, so I support this recommendation together with the 2022 resolution of lowering the flags and everything else that we proposed in our discussions before. In this recommendation, I wanted to point out the reason why I wanted the last stop point removed, because I think that's our individual community members of Shepparton, and that's their democratic right to make their decision. That's their own choice. If they want to support that day and go to those activities, well then we as council should not be telling them what they want to do on that particular day. I think because the original one says formally we notify our community about not going, but we shouldn't be in that position to formally tell them. And in closing, Mayor Sally, I just want to say thank you to our council staff too as well. The way that they conducted themselves in a professional manner, because it is a highly sensitive issue, and the way that they conducted it and the way that we got to this result, I want to commend them for what they've done.
Thank you, Councillor James. Councillor Brophy, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Sarley, and thank you, Councillor James, for putting that forward. In October 2022, Greater Shepparton City Council resolved to advocate for the Australian Government for a change of date for the Australia's national holiday and to continue community engagement to inform a council decision about council's role on the 26th of January in 2024 and beyond. Council also resolved to conduct community engagement on the idea of having a day of community celebration that is not held on the 26th of January, inconclusive, reflects the full history of Australia and is culturally respectful. Can I say that on January 26 in 2021, 2022 and in 2023, I had the honour to speak to the communities of Dookie, to Tatura and to Mooroopna respectively on those days. Thank you, Councillor James, for attending with me at Mooroopna last year, or earlier this year. And indicated by myself, but also by within each community, community members also expressed that there was a change in the wind, that there was a change in regards to Australia Day. This recommendation is nothing new, as was pointed out, that what we had put forward in October 2022, but reinstates what we have already put forward, having Council's intention to look at January 26th with a contemporary view, and that the date be changed, and to advocate for that, to provide a balance to those who are hurt by that date and by those who hold dearly values that this day has celebrated on. What is clear is that the date, January 26, to most non-Indigenous Australians is not that important. I'm talking about the date. The day is, however, to celebrate all that is great of our nation, the inclusiveness, that the local citizens and to celebrate that and their achievements by welcoming new citizens with citizenship ceremonies. So many great things to recognise and be thankful for. And we do want a holiday to celebrate it as well. I mean, for goodness sake, we have a holiday for a football parade, for the King's birthday and for Labor Day. And what do we actually do on that day to celebrate any of those events? We probably don't very much. We know that the date has been changed before, and it was only enshrined by the Australian Government under Paul Keating in 1994 to make it the 26th. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has been asked if he will change the date, and he has indicated that if he was re-elected for another term, that it will be on the agenda. So we are being proactive here in the transition of that. We know that this date, not the day, is hurtful to a significant number of our Indigenous brothers and sisters. They too want to celebrate all that is great in this nation. And so I firmly stand behind this recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Brophy. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Any?
Point of clarification, Mayor Sally, are we discussing this recommendation without point 5? Is that what we're discussing now?
You should have one in front of you.
Yeah. So that's the official motion.
Councillor James, that's the official motion. Yeah.
All right, just wanted to be clear on that.
Are there any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? Councillor Spinks.
Thank you, Mayor Sally. What we are deciding today is a legacy moment for Greater Shepparton, on the path to reconciliation and on behalf of an Australia that fully celebrates all who call this land home. Over the past 2 years, the Council has been undergoing extensive learning, conversations and considerations around what Australia Day and January 26th mean to our community and to us as a council. As a background, according to the National Library of Australia, prior to 1935, the 26th January was known as First Landing Day or Foundation Day in Australian states and territories. But from 1935 onwards, all jurisdictions used the name Australia Day to mark the date. Australia Day was not consistently celebrated as a public holiday across Australia until 1994. But alongside this, and from the museum's Victoria website, for Indigenous Australians for whom the date represented invasion and an irrevocable impact upon their culture, land and population, there was no cause for celebration. And in 1938, during the 150-year celebration events, approximately 100 Aboriginal protesters gathered in Sydney to present a different view of the celebrations. For the protesters and those represented, Australia Day was instead a day of mourning, highlighting the loss of life, land and language that was a cause of the European occupation of Australia. I understand why the 26th January date was originally chosen. In a time when the traditional custodians of this land were not even recognised as human beings, of course the lens that was used in this and all decision-making was that of the coloniser. the colony that swept this land and were proud to celebrate the day that they arrived and in their eyes and in their truth created such wonderful lives for themselves. But this history ignores and erases the truth of the colonised. Taken from the Reconciliation Australia website, for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, Australia's colonial history is characterised by devastating land dispossession, violence and racism. The decision to choose that date to celebrate was made through the lens of those who gained and not from those who had lost. But today we see through both lenses, and so we have a new decision to make. The Australia Day website describes the event of Australia Day as a chance to celebrate all the things we love about Australia: land, sense of fair go, lifestyle, democracy, the freedoms we enjoy, and particularly our people. However, we know that these things aren't experienced by all of us. Each year, the councillors and council attend and support a number of events, including National Sorry Day, Reconciliation Week, National Closing the Gap Day, NAIDOC Week, and the anniversary of the National Apology. And every time we talk about how much has to change and how much work there still is to do. And then the following year we go again and we talk about the same thing, and I wonder what has actually changed. Well, today we are doing the work and we are being the change. In line with Council's commitment to reconciliation, this decision aligns with the Reconciliation Australia dimensions of reconciliation in creating positive two-way relationships built on trust and respect, actively supporting reconciliation through our political structures, and fostering historical acceptance where all Australians understand and accept the wrongs of the past and their impact on Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, where Australia makes amends for past policies and practices and ensures these wrongs are never repeated. We make this decision on behalf of the proud Aboriginal community of Greater Shepparton, but also on behalf of us all, because it is only when we can all experience the things that Australia Day represents that we can truly celebrate together. And we can't possibly do that on a date where some celebrate their creation while others mourn their destruction. Woven together through a history not of our making, but of a future we can create together, we as a nation must boldly face our history uncomfortably and unapologetically and do the work to move forward. And so today we will decide to untangle these two histories, the light and the dark, two threads of the same tapestry, to fully recognise them both with the importance they each deserve so that we can weave our future together. January 26th, a day of mourning, and Australia Day, a day to celebrate all that we have been and all that we will become, both important and both separate. So moving forward, while Council cannot change the actual date of our national holiday, Council can change how it recognises January 26th and how it celebrates Australia Day events locally. And so we will now recognise January 26th as a day of mourning by continuing to lower the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander flags, by supporting the dawn morning service event held locally, and by continuing to advocate to the federal government to change the date of Australia Day from January 26th to a more suitable date as soon as possible. And as we await this formal date change, we will continue to recognise that Australia Day is our national day, but we'll reimagine what the week of Australia Day looks like by providing support not on January 26th, but before and after it. We will continue to provide ways for our communities to celebrate all of the things that make Greater Shepparton such an incredible place to call home, through a small town community celebration grants program for communities to hold their own celebrations before or after January 26th, and we will conduct our own community awards and citizenship ceremony on the 25th of January. We will also continue to hold citizenship ceremonies not only in January, but also every 2 to 3 months throughout the year, as we have been doing for many years now. If you are able to take the time to read the consultation and findings report that informs this agenda item, you will see that we heard loud and clear from the community's two key messages: that January 26th is a day of mourning, and that we still want to celebrate what makes our land and our communities special. And through this decision, we are recognising and supporting both. Today, I look through both lenses and support this decision wholeheartedly. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Spinks. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? Councillor Dobson.
Thank you, Mayor Sally, and I first of all like to congratulate the speakers beforehand. Couldn't agree more with what has been said. Well written and well put together. Councillor Brophy talked about transition, and I think that's probably the word that I'd like to be able to put out into the community. There's a few in the community saying that we want to give away Australia Day. That could be further from the truth. What we want to do is recognise Australia Day on another day rather than January the 26th. January the 1st, for example, might be a good day to celebrate Australia Day because it has got some meaning within the federal government and the Constitution. So that could well be could well be the date. You could still have the holidays on the 2nd or whatever. But I think we should be advocating for that moreover. Changing the date shows respect to our First Nations people, and I would congratulate Councillor James on his very eloquent recommendation or discussion towards the recommendation. And again, all I can say is congratulations to everybody. I know there's more to come, but I fully support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Dobson. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Councillor Summer.
Thank you, Mayor Sally. I'm actually choosing to abstain from voting today out of respect for the upcoming referendum. I do generally support the changes presented, obviously, but I do feel that the timing's inappropriate. Changing Australia Day 2 weeks before a referendum is likely to further fuel community division and undermine local support for constitutional change. It's listed in the report that it is likely to cause division. So right when unconvinced voters are considering how the referendum will affect them, media headlines may imply that our national day has been taken over by radicals. The public is unlikely to hear the considered words of their councillors over the roar of sensationalised gossip, and this is a big risk. I want to be very clear, this item is completely separate to the referendum. Deliberations began earlier than the referendum. They continue concurrently with the referendum, and today's decision would have come to us regardless of the referendum. We're told the matter could not be postponed due to time constraints around next year's January 26 activities. It's difficult to accept that the importance of events in our small pocket of the world outweigh the risk of broader community angst. However, I'm only one of 9 councillors and I do not choose what goes in the agenda. So to wrap up, this council voted unanimously and bravely to support the yes vote. But if we cannot judge the sensitivities of timing when it comes to cultural matters, we fail to take the good people of Greater Shepparton along with us, and that can backfire. So as much as it pains me, I will not be voting on this matter today.
Thank you, Councillor Summer. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Councillor Abdullah.
Thank you. I strongly support the motion that's in front of us. However, and we all know, and public also needs to know, that this is a matter that we have been discussing for a couple of years now. And many conversations, many discussions, many different points of views were presented during this period. And of course, in this last round, we had 5 points. And as I walked into the room today, I realized that there was a slightly different version of the motion that has been moved today. So I fully support all the 4 points that Councillor Greg James has proposed. However, I also want to just express my disappointment that point number 5 has been removed, because point number 5 in the original recommendations was all about respect to First Nations people. And it said that out of respect to First Nations people, do not formally participate in Australia Day events held on 26 January. I am still sort of not sure that why we have removed that. Maybe we needed to have more conversations on this one. But my initial understanding was that because Council is supporting a change of date and is continuing to advocate to the Australian government to change the date, it's a logical conclusion that we are making a decision that we stand with First Nations people. We stand with them shoulder to shoulder in their day of mourning and in their grief and in their hurt. And we want to make this day more inclusive. So I'm not sure that by removing this particular point, how we are demonstrating that. And again, I want to also point out that my understanding is that this motion is for the organization, about individuals, you and me, or individual people basically, because we as councillors, we are only individuals. We are here today, tomorrow we might not be here. But these decisions that we are taking are for the whole organization. So as an organization, if we are saying that we want to advocate to the government for a change of date, then it is in the same context, it is for the organization to not formally participate in Australia Day events held on 26 January out of respect for First Nations people. It does not mean what I want to do or you want to do or others want to do. It's about the organization as a whole, because this decision today is for the whole organization. It's not about individuals, it's about the policy. And if the policy is to continue to advocate for a change of date, then we might as well show more respect to First Nations people, stand with them, stand shoulder by shoulder with them, and be there for them in their day of mourning.
Thank you, Councillor Abdullah. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Sally. Yes. I had prepared something a lot longer, but I won't, because I think everyone else has pretty much covered all the points. However, as we all know as councillors, we've been wrestling with this recommendation for quite a few weeks now. I think this is about the third version that's come to fore, and to a degree it's almost semantics, really. I accept Councillor James's omission of point 5. Whether it was there or not doesn't probably really bother me that much. Two major points of that whole recommendation, for me at least, is point 1, continue its advocacy to the Australian government to change the date of Australia Day to a more civil date. To me, that is the crux of the whole issue here. Some of those other points are just, I won't say window dressing, they're not. They're just steps that have been set out to achieve that outcome. I get that. It just seems slightly contradictory, where they're saying recognise in its communications that Australia Day held on 26th of January remains Australia's National Day. I would have loved the word currently remains to be inserted there. But again, we could probably find many different versions of the wording, because that seems to suggest that it's there forever, which point 1, we're actually fighting against that. So, as I said, those 2 points are the most key points for me. In regard to what Councillor Summers said, I think was very important, and I tend to agree with her there. This debate or discussion we're having today feeds into the narrative of the No campaign about the voice to Parliament. You know, I've been hearing from many people that this whole campaign is about the Indigenous people getting more influence and ultimate power and all those other scary things that have been said. And now we're having this debate right now, sort of proves their point to a degree, in their minds at least. So I accept what you're saying is right on the mark as far as that goes, but here we are, we're having this discussion and debate. In regard to the date, the whole controversy and sensitivity is around the date, not the day, as Councillor Dobson said. The day will remain and should remain and should be even more strongly celebrated, I would think, moving forward. So it's about the number 26, not about the actual event itself. The United States have 4th of July, that's their Independence Day. They also have a Columbus Day, which celebrates the landing of Christopher Columbus on the eastern coast of the United States, or the Americas, sorry. We could always have a Captain Arthur Phillip Day if you wanted to, because that's an historical event that did happen, can't be denied. He bumped into the east coast of Australia on that day, fair enough, but why are we tying that in with celebrating Australia for what it is today and what it's been and what it's going to become? I hope people can get their head around this thing. This has nothing to do with the day, it's the actual date. So I've sort of jumped around a little bit there because everyone else has covered everything quite well. So again, I support the motion. For me, points 1 and 4 are the keys.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor Adam. I don't think there's any other councillors. Councillor Latson?
Yep.
Very
I'm
good.
fully supportive of the amended recommendation, and will mention that it does align with the Council's adopted reconciliation action plan.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor Latson. I'll just in closing, enough's been said, obviously in favour of the motion and obviously, yeah, the removal of number 5. I do respect and acknowledge what Councillor Summers said. In some ways, I do agree with a little bit about what you're saying. So, but that's not going to stop me from supporting this. I think I've just gotten down here. We've struck a fair balance, in my opinion, with the lengthy conversations that we've had over the course of the journey. And I just want to acknowledge Councillor Greg James for your strong advocacy regarding this, not only from a council perspective, but for your own First Nations community as well, so good on you for doing that. That is enough from me. Councillor James, did you have any closing comments?
Yeah, just a right reply, Mayor Sally. I just want to, sort of understand this is October last year, so 12 months we've been having this discussion for quite some time. I want to thank the councillors for your contributions towards this discussion today, the topics. And I understand fully what you're saying, Councillor Summer, but I'd just like you to understand you need to walk in my shoes in this period of time too as well. It's very difficult out in the current climate with, yes, the voice, and also this is a complex and sensitive issues too as well. A lot of my community, I have some concerns about my community with the surface of certain discrimination in our community. So it is a tough time for our community, but this is something that we've engaged in conversations for the last 12 months. And it is time to make this decision, and I'm very honoured that this council has made the decision, and my fellow councillors. I thank you for your comments that you've made so far. Thank you, Mayor.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor James. Councillors, we will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Motion carried. Councillors, we now go to page 20 of the agenda, item 10.3, potential Greater Shepparton Avenue of Flags. There is a recommendation. Can I please have a councillor put that in motion?
Thank you, Mayor Sally. I'll move that in relation to a potential Avenue of Flags project, the council, 1, write to the relevant embassies to seek engagement and a financial contribution. 2, conduct further community consultation. 3, consider alternative options for the public recognition of Greater Shepparton's diverse First Nations, migrant and refugees communities. And 4, to receive a further report that responds to points 1 to 3.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor Dobson. Can I have a councillor second that motion? Councillor Brophy.
I second that motion.
Councillor Dobson, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Sally. In many respects, this Avenue of Flags is, I suppose, a spin-off from the International Village that Greater Shepparton had many years ago, which was a great idea, but it was very expensive, and for various reasons it never went on. But it did attract international and financial assistance from embassies. And I'd like to go to that point that this proposal would be determined on the amount of financial assistance and input from embassies from those countries that we want to talk to. It wouldn't be right that this council pays the whole cost, whatever that cost may be. So that the embassies would be the first ones to be approached to seek their involvement, to seek where their financial involvement, and that would be the first part of the consultation. Including in the financial implications, we do seek, as I said, assistance from the embassies representing the nominated countries, etc. I have had some discussions with the Snowy Monaro Regional Council, which forms part of this report, and I got a response, and it follows. By way of background, the Avenue of Flags in Cooma, which is in their municipality, was erected in 1959 by the then Snowy Mountains Hydroelectric Scheme in recognition of and to commemorate the different nationalities of those working on the Snowy Hydro Scheme. It is historical and with purpose. I thought they were very important words. Over the years, we have received several inquiries about various flags which are no longer in active use or of historical representation, only now. Many of the flags represent countries that no longer exist, and some of these new countries are represented in the new Avenue of Flags. As the original flags were part of a festival back in the day, they do represent that era and the national pride of the migrant workers. And I thought that little bit of narrative from the office of the Cooma Shire was very good. The purpose of the Avenue of Flags is to recognise Indigenous Australians, migrant Australians and refugee communities within Greater Shepparton community, and to provide a location for residents and visitors to celebrate identity and culture. The Australian Bureau of Statistics, the 2021 census data show that 17.4% of the Greater Shepparton residents are born overseas, and that's a very important issue. The other point that I would make is this, that the Ethnic Council of Shepparton and District have suggested that an expression of interest could be offered to communities to display their flags, but it also raised potential issues around displaying or not displaying certain flags. And that's the sensitivities, which obviously if the report will go ahead and explain further. They also indicated that this space, such the avenue of flags, would allow community to feel connected. And I think that's really the purpose behind this proposal, is to have some connectivity between those people who've come from overseas and those who are in Australia. Full consultation with the broader Greater Shepparton community regarding the initiative, including the display of specific flags, inclusion of interpretive signage, small events, etc., is all part of the report. But I do, in conclusion, Mayor Sali, say to you that this is a project that I would see over a 10-year period. It wouldn't be something that you'd do tomorrow. On two bases. One is the cost, if the council had to do it themselves, and I'm not advocating that the council do it themselves, but two, to go around the embassies and to put our case forward to those embassies that we feel that may be interested in being part of it. And if we get the embassies involved and we get them to put their money in, I believe that the communities, the migrant communities, will come along and feel that sense of pride of belonging to Greater Shepparton. I don't see the need, as the initial report suggested, a whole heap of infrastructure cost to go with it. I don't see that. I just see an avenue of flags, and the rest of our infrastructure around Shepparton will take care of the niceties. So I put this proposition to council, and I'm seeking this.
Thank you, Councillor Dobson. Councillor Brophy, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Sali. Look, just briefly, I had already spoken on this particular motion when it came up a few months ago, but as I had stated previously, and as Councillor Dobson has alluded to, I did mention at the time that the flags in Cooma, which I had visited previously as well, and it really does literally draw thousands of people to their particular region and marries in one of Australia's largest multicultural projects in our history, being the Snowy Mountain Scheme. But there are many other locations. Now, I'm not advocating that it's going to be the United Nations one in New York. There's about 180 flags in there. But I do take what Councillor Dobson said back in terms of the International Village. And at the time, nations bent over backwards to be included and to contribute financially and structurally to the facility that was there at the time, particularly in the initial stages. And as we know, that political attaches and consul generals throughout their embassies here in Australia are there to promote and advance the interests of their nation here in Australia. And if they buy into this, then maybe it is cost rationale in regards to that. So I look forward to seeing the supplementary report in regards to that, and a report that doesn't have to be as elaborate as the one which included some of the infrastructure in this current report. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Brophy. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Councillor Spinks.
Thank you. I do not support the continued use of council time or resources to explore this idea. There is no doubt that this is a nice idea, a lovely idea, really well intended, and if you ask the community if they like the idea, of course they're going to say yes, because again, it's a nice idea, really lovely. That's how it got through the first council meeting, but it's time to pull it up because it came out of nowhere. There was no community request or advisory group recommendation or action plan item or strategic links. Other than a general alignment with our ongoing commitment to support our culturally diverse community, this idea has no foundation to grow from. To continue to pursue it speaks of nothing more than being a nice project, which flies in the face of the endless, well-supported, well-reasoned and well-justified projects that are waiting on the sidelines for funding. From community groups and sporting groups and community planning groups, from our small towns and from our advisory committees, the projects are endless that are waiting for funding and waiting for this level of passion behind them. And although the cost has come back very large, it is the process of the project that I object to and not the cost, and the idea of finding alternative funding for the project will not change the lack of support, reasoning or justification that sits behind my objection. But from the money perspective, for a council that constantly emphasises its financial constraints and emphasises the need for efficiencies, if we suddenly have 300k or 200k or even 100k to spare, then I argue we have a very long list of projects that are just as nice, some are even more than nice and are in fact needed, and that have already been forced through the strategic processes of council and have been waiting an awful lot longer. And if this idea is to be considered again in future, then I encourage it to go through those processes itself, perhaps within the multicultural strategy, or as a budget request from community groups, or through a community grant application or a community planning group action plan, because it's a great idea, but so are all of the others. And without strategic justification, we are working outside of our role. So I do not support this to go any further. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Spinks. Are there any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? Councillor James.
Thank you, Mayor Sully. Look, I support the concept of the Avenue of the Flags, and I mean, as a very proud Aboriginal man, I mean, there's a sense of pride for my people's culture and et cetera in regards to the identity of our flag being shown around our town and our regions. So in respect of the many multicultural community members that reside in our community, I would welcome the opportunity for the community, the input and some feedback of displaying of the flags. This, I would assume, would be coordinated with the Ethnic Council of Shepparton and districts and the relevant embassies and respected countries. And I recall a mural was mentioned too as well, which would incorporate some of the flags as well. However, I do have some concerns on the costings and that the price of each flagpole, and I know we had some healthy discussion at a briefing on this, and the price of each flagpole and an explanation was provided to as well. And I'm not sure about the shelter costs and why do we need a shelter there. So I have some concerns about it. But having said that, in voting in favour of it, I look forward to revise the quotations of costs, and I would like to see that some feedback too as well in regards to if there is that desire out there, if there's a need back there, and if the costs were significantly lowered from what it was, what the costs that we do have projected there. And I thank the council staff because there's a lot of work in doing that. But I would like further information, and I look forward to the next report that comes back to the table.
Thank you, councillor James. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Councillor Summer.
Thank you, Mayor Sally. I'm not opposed to the idea in theory, but I do fear that ratepayers will see this as superfluous spending during a cost of living crisis. So again, it comes back to sensitivities of timing. The estimated cost of this project is over 650,000. There's been brief talk around efficiencies and leveraging, but I believe this project's likely to cost even more than that. I initially did object to the notice of motion requesting a report because I've seen how these things can run away from us. The Shepparton Art Museum is a good example of that. As predicted, today we've landed a costed proposal that intends to hit the ground running by writing to embassies for financial support. So I urge councillors to please hasten slowly. I'd like to thank Councillor Dobson for his explanation of the origins of this idea and fleshing it out, because I had heard nothing about it prior to the notice of motion. It certainly has not been raised by the community during prior budget discussions. As stated by Councillor Spinks, we already have an extensive number of projects waiting for funding, and some have been waiting for many years, particularly in small towns. Apologies, but I am not convinced that an avenue of flags is important enough to jump that queue, and I tend to think that ratepayers would agree with me. So I'm quietly confident the average ratepayer is more interested in us fixing roads than building monuments. So I'm going to take a conservative position and strongly say no.
Thank you, councillor Summer. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Councillor Abdullah.
Yeah, I would like to say thanks to Councillor Dobson for raising or bringing this concept. However, given everything that's happened, given every reality that we are confronting in terms of cost of living, our council expenses, our council, everything that has those monetary impacts, I do not think it's the right time to be investing any more time and effort and money on this project. I do not support council to do additional work on this project, because as Councillor Spinks and Councillor Summer has said, we have so many other projects that are waiting. We have projects from small towns, we have projects from community planning groups, which we are unable to fund. Some of them are really, maybe they are not as big as this particular project. So I feel that it's a very noble idea to recognize multicultural communities in our town, but I think we need to focus more on the practical stuff, what is a more practical stuff. And I, at this point in time, am not convinced that council should spend any more time and effort on this project.
Thank you, Councillor Abdullah. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Councillor Adam.
Thank you, Mayor Sally. Yeah, I've heard arguments both sides here, and I think I agree with all of them. In principle, this is a fantastic idea. If there's any municipality in Australia that is more appropriately suited to this type of project, Shepparton is it. Without a doubt, that's probably why Jeff put it forward. But when I say 650 grand, it just scares the hell out of me, to be quite honest. And as Councillor Summers said, that may even rise. But the motion before us today isn't to start building this project. It's to write to the relevant embassies to seek engagement and a financial contribution. Good luck with that. And consider alternative options, which is the more interesting point for me, for the public recognition of Greater Shepparton's diverse First Nations migrant refugee community. So I'm going to cautiously support this motion, only the fact that we may receive some more information regarding those 2 points. I don't think we're going to be very successful in getting embassies to fund it, but I could be wrong. And if I am wrong and they all throng to this or flock to this idea, well, great. It's not 650 grand, it might be 65 grand. We don't know that until we write these letters. Alternative options, as I think Councillor James mentioned, I think I mentioned a few weeks ago, maybe we could have some other alternative type of commemorative structure, whether it be flags on our wall here at East Bank or some other type of thing. We'll have to explore that. And I don't think it's going to take that much of our resources to write a few letters, potentially. I know it's always easy when I say a few letters and there's more to it than that, I get that. But I don't think it's going to take a lot of resources and money to further investigate those 2 points. I'll be really looking forward to the report that comes back. That may actually crush it on the head completely, or it may actually give us some more breathing space, potentially. So I would cautiously support the motion for those 2 points. It's just about 650 grand, let's do it. No.
Very good, Councillor. Any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Now, I'll just really quickly say a few words before I hand over to Councillor Dobson for some closing comments. I think, Councillor Adam, you summed it up perfectly. And as well has been mentioned by others opposing this, yeah, we've got heaps of projects lined up, and I'm not even suggesting that this leapfrog any of those projects whatsoever. We're not actually considering committing to this by any means in regards to an investment perspective, so ratepayers don't have to worry. There is no financial contribution being made tonight, but what we are considering is whether we engage with some of those embassies, and there might be 5, there might be 10 that we send some letters to. I know Dinny speaks to the Albanian ambassador regularly, and I'm sure you might be able to find out by the end of tonight whether they'd be committed to supporting. But I think we can get a little bit of a gauge from them whether there is something there to pursue, that they do have possible funding allocated to them to support the acknowledgement of those people that have migrated to our great country. So I think until we find that out, and it might only be a small amount, then this council again will be able to consider if it's worth pursuing any further than where we are now. But I wouldn't support a financial contribution by any means at this particular point, let alone 600,000. What I am supportive of is recognising our great multicultural community, and if we can get some more information on that and see what it looks like from the embassy perspective, we might be surprised. Otherwise, this will sit on the back burner as a really good Councillor Dobson idea, and we might pick it up at another time. So other than that, I'll hand back to you for some closing comments if you've got anything.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Sally. And I think we recognised all the fors and against each one out of the box. It has come from the community, came from a community member, and I put it up in a notice of motion, and I pre-warned or told councillors before the notice of motion came up that this was the principle of an idea that was put to me, and which I thought was a good idea. Sure, there are lots of projects, that you can nominate that would come up before this, people are being hung up by a figure of 650,000. You know, we're nowhere near that sort of consideration at the moment. That was a figure that was put on a budget, and that was with council funding the whole show. And that's not the intention of this at all. This is the intention of this is to get the support of the embassies and the countries from which our migrants have come from, get them to support the idea, and if the support is strong enough, then we go to the next step. But the steps would be fairly well set out. The reasoning behind this, again, is as a celebration of what makes Greater Shepparton so good. Amongst every other thing, we've got arts and we've got sports and we've got walking tracks, you know, we've got football and all the rest of it. And Councillor James has often said to me that when an Aboriginal person sees an Aboriginal flag flying in a public space, that's a sign of welcome to the Aboriginal people. And I've taken that comment on board quite strongly. And I feel that that's the same attitude that would come from people from other countries, feel proud to think that their community is recognised within the Greater Shepparton community. And how do you do that? You put a flag up and people come and see and get their photos taken, send them home, and you never know where it might finish up. That's really all I've got to say. We're not talking about spending any money at the moment. There's still a lot of water to go under the bridge, so I am looking for your support.
Thank you, Councillor Dobson. Councillors, we will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Motion carried. Councillors, we now go to page 28 of the agenda, item 11.1, Audit and Risk Management Committee minutes, 8th February and 11th of May 2023. There is a recommendation. Can I please have a councillor put that forward as a motion? Councillors, can I get a mover?
Thank you, Minister Sali. I'll move that the council receive the minutes of the 8th of February and 11th of May 2023 Audit and Risk Management Committee meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Summer. Can I have a councillor second that motion? Summer, would you like to speak to the motion?
Just that I very much appreciate the support in our role by providing what the Risk and Audit Management Committee do in their role. I feel like they work on the nuts and bolts a lot more than us. We're very high end. They get a lot more detail than we do, and it's always a very insightful read when we can go over these before the agenda. So well done to the committee for the great work you do. We appreciate it.
Councillor Summer. Councillor Brophy, would you like to speak to the motion?
Look, this is just putting into line, we're talking about two lots of receiving of the minutes here, both in February and of May, so to pick up both those minutes and to present them and pass them to council. Councillor Summer is absolutely spot on. It is a very high level committee, and you learn so much from it every time I click onto it. I learn so much from the experience and the enthusiasm, and also just the wisdom of those that are on it, and the questioning that they have of our staff as well. And can I compliment our staff on their response to that as well? So, no, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brophy. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? Councillor Summer, any closing comments?
No, thank you.
Very good. Councillors, we will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried on a vote. Councillors, we now go to page 31 of the agenda, item 11.2, contracts awarded under delegation, August 2023. There is a recommendation. Can I please have a councillor put that forward as a motion? Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor Sali. I move that recommend the recommendation 11.2, contracts awarded under delegation August 2023 on page 31 of the agenda, and I'll read the recommendation out that the council, number one, note the contracts awarded under delegation pursuant to a formal tender process period, and number two, note the request for tender advertised but not yet awarded.
Thank you, Councillor James. Can I have a councillor second that motion?
I'll second the motion, Mayor Sali.
Councillor Adam. Thank you. Councillor James, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Sali. Just very quickly, in the first dot point of the tenders, we have three tenders who were awarded, and that was Queensland Fruit Fly Trapping and Grid Monitoring, and that was awarded to IK Caldwell, AGN Vet. The second one was a provision of printer lease and maintenance services over 4 years, and that was awarded to KISS Print Solutions Proprietary Limited. The third one was a provision of line and road marking services panel of suppliers, initial term of 2 years with a 1-year option, and it was awarded to 3 suppliers, and that's on this particular occasion: Sprayline Road Services, J&A Harry Proprietary Limited, trading as Line Master, and Complete Line Marking Services Proprietary Limited. The second part of that recommendation was request for tenders advertised but not yet awarded. There are 3: provision of party and event equipment, hire services and panel of suppliers, the term for 3 years, and provision of heavy plant and equipment hire, wet and dry hire services, term for 3 years with 2 single-year options. And the last one was statute of structure, planned intersections, functional design, and that was a lump sum contract. This tender was scheduled to close on the 30th, which was last Wednesday. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor James. Councillor Adam, would you like to speak to the motion?
Well, yeah, but Councillor James left me nothing to read out. He mentioned all the contracts awarded and to be tendered, but I want to mention the Tatura structure planning sections functional design. That's good, I think, because it's showing that there's movement at the station in regard to that project over there. Usually the actual project actual design is the first step, obviously, but then the actual intersection itself will usually follow fairly quickly after that design process is finished. I'm glad to see that's getting close to being designed. So good luck with that, and hopefully that'll be an absolute finished bloody project in the very near future.
Very good, Councillor Adam. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? I'll just really quickly highlight, although Councillor James did, the Queensland fruit fly trapping grid and monitoring. Big shout out to Ross Aberfield, who now works in the building. We've taken on the responsibility of that. I mean, we, Greater Shepparton City Council, and they were last year acknowledged at Hawk Connections in Brisbane for the great work that they do, obviously protecting the food bowl of Australia from the deadly fruit fly. We speak about water. Fruit fly is nearly as important as well. So I want to highlight the good work they do, and I'm glad that this council is getting right behind that as well. So any closing comments, Councillor James?
No, all good. Thank you, Mayor Sally.
Very good. Councillors, we will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Unopposed? Councillors, we now go to page 34 of the agenda, item 11.3, Council Plan 2021 to 25 Progress Report. There is a recommendation. Let's have a councillor put that forward as a motion.
Thank you, Mayor Sally. I move that the council note the 2022-23 progress report on the key performance indicators contained within the 2021 to 2025 council plan as attached.
Thank you, Councillor Summer. Can I have a councillor second that motion? Brophy. Councillor Summer, would you like to speak to the motion?
Oh, yes, thank you, Mayor Sally. A very long time ago, it feels like now, we did develop the council plan with shared ideals and mutual outcomes that we all wanted to see, and this is our report card to the community so that they can judge whether or not we are performing in the way that they would expect their council to perform. We seem to be tracking quite well, apart from a couple of things in there. Yeah, and we've still got some time. So that is our report card, that is us being transparent, and I support the motion.
Councillor Brophy, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Sally. Yeah, this is halfway through the plan, the Council Plan 2021 to 2025. As indicated, 73 out of the 81 KPIs are on track, which is terrific. And really, a number of ones that are not quite on track can be, I guess, in part attributed towards the flood event as well, particularly in the infrastructural area. So we are doing very, very well. This is the 5th report to date we've been given, and although some might say that we're navel gazing at our performances, the data is rich, and it really does tell us whether or not we're on track or not. And when we set out this plan in motion, whether or not we're actually fulfilling that. Remembering too that the council plan included very heavily community consultation. So it was a collaboration between councillors and the community, and we're on track.
Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? No? Any closing comments, councillor? Oh, yeah. Councillor.
I'd just like to congratulate Peter and his team on the progress report and to get that far along halfway through. Yeah, credit to the team.
Councillor Latson. Any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? All right, any closing comments, Councillor Summer?
No, thank you, Ms. Sully.
Councillors will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried. Opposed. Councillors, we now go to page 38 of the agenda item 11.4, councillor representation on committees, Municipal Association of Victoria. There is a recommendation. Can I please have a councillor put that forward? Councillor Brophy.
Thank you, Mayor Sally. I put forward that the recommendation, the council nominate Councillor Sam Spinks and Councillor Jeff Dobson to represent Greater Shepparton City Council at the Municipal Association of Victoria State Council meeting to be held on the 13th of October 2023, and appoint councillor representatives to Councillor Seema Abdullah and Councillor Dini Adam following the 13th of October 2023 MAV State Council meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Brophy. Can I have a councillor second that motion? Councillor Spinks.
I'll second that motion.
Councillor Brophy, would you like to speak to the motion?
Look, just briefly, this is more of an administrative dealing with it. Unfortunately, both representatives, Councillor Abdullah and Councillor Adam, are unable to attend the actual state MAV State Council meeting scheduled for that date, and there is a requirement under council agreement that we do have representatives at MAV to provide a representative at the meeting, and council, we just request that which councillors were able to attend, so that's why we've done it, and then revert back afterwards.
Very well, Councillor Brophy. Councillor Spinks, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, I support that this is purely administrative, just to highlight that there are two of us being nominated as the temporary representatives, but that is purely so we have a backup and don't have to come to another meeting if one of us is busy. So for the moment, there'll be the two of us available to go to that, and then one of us will attend, and then it will revert back. Purely administrative. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor Spinks. Any councillors like to speak against the motion? Any councillors like to speak for the motion? No? Any closing comments, Councillor Brophy?
No, thank you.
Very good. We will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried unopposed. Councillors, we now go to page 41 of the agenda item 11.5, August 2023 monthly finance report. There is a recommendation. Can I please have someone put that forward as a motion? Councillor Dobson.
I'll move that the council note the August 2023 monthly financial report.
Thank you, Councillor Dobson. Can I have a councillor second that, please?
I'll second.
Summer. Councillor Dobson, would you like to speak to the motion?
It's again very early in the financial year to get any particular trends, except to say that the profits or the surplus showing at the moment is, of course, underscored or underlined by bringing into consideration the full the annual rate revenue. But the council's projected adjusted underlying result is still $8.3 million deficit, which reflects the challenges the council faces in sustainable delivery of services the community value and need. At the moment, when you look at it, the operating result shows an actual surplus of $87.1 million, which is skewed by the amount of bringing all the rates in at the same time. But so I don't take a lot of story other than to say that the cash flow is good, and the other interesting thing which always gets my attention is the value of current assets versus the current liabilities as a percentage, and it's about 139% still on track, and I see that is very positive. The only other thing to come in, of course, is that we're still sort of going up and down on flood recovery. There's still costs and will be costs that will come in over the next few months, and monies to come in. So it's a very fluid situation, but I congratulate the council staff, the accounting staff, as I would say, in presenting this report.
Thank you, Councillor Dobson. Councillor Summer, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you.
Any councillors like to speak against the motion? Any councillors like to speak for the motion? Closing comments, Councillor Dobson?
No, not really. Thank you.
Very good. We will now go to the vote. Favour, yeah. Yep, very good. Thank you. Motion carried unopposed. Councillors, we now go to page 45 of the agenda item 11.6, financial statements and performance statement. For the year ending 30 June 2023, there is a recommendation. Can I please have a councillor put that forward as a motion? I'm going to move it. Councillor Dobson.
I'll move that the council approve in principle the financial statements and performance statements for the financial year ended 30th of June 2023 as attached, and authorise the Mayor, Councillor Shane Sarley, the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Anthony Brophy, and the Chief Executive Officer, Peter Harriott, to certify the financial statements and performance statements in their final form after any changes recommended or agreed to by the auditor have been made.
Thank you, councillor Dobson. Can I have a councillor second that motion, please?
I'll second the motion.
Councillor Adam. Councillor Dobson, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, this is I guess, the final piece of the paperwork that's got to be done, which shows the results for the council over the last financial year. It has been out for public consultation. It's been through the Audit and Finance Committee, and this is subject to the auditors signing off on this. This is the final piece of the paperwork. The financial summary says that the council achieved a net accounting surplus of 30.14 million in 22-23. This surplus is influenced, this is a very important part of the commentary. It's influenced by non-recurrent capital grants of $14.1 million, contributed assets from new estates and subdivisions $6.8 million, and other capital contributions of $2.1 million, including developer contribution plans. Excluding these capital items, the true underlying operating surplus was 7.1 million. So you can see that the way that the accounting system, that we're governed by the State Accounting Office and the Auditor General, we've got to bring in these assets. They're almost like gifted assets, I suppose. They've got to be accounted for. Does it affect our day-to-day workings of our budgets? No, it doesn't. But it's just the way that the government want to have it. The result was also influenced by early receipt of 100% of the 23-24 federal financial assistance grants during June 23. Whilst that's very noble and very good, you'll find that when we get into the next financial year, the 23-24 year, that will come into account, and things won't look as rosy on paper as what they do today. So I think that, we're adhering to financial, I suppose, rules and regulations, but still a very good record.
Councillor Dobson. Councillor Adam, would you like to speak to the motion?
Just briefly, this is a Local Government Act requirement, and that's basically all it is. This motion is not about the content, really. It's about the Mayor and CEO signing off on this official report. So that's basically it.
Thank you, Councillor Adam. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? Councillor.
Thank you. I just want to highlight, I just want to clarify that in Councillor Dotson's comments, I think you inadvertently said that the report has gone out for community consultation.
No.
And this report is not required to go for community consultation. Just want to clarify that it's the financial report is prepared and submitted to the Victorian Auditor General as a part of Act that requires council to do so. And this report is the financial statements and the performance statement have been prepared, and it's a yearly process that we go through, and this is the last step of the process. Just wanted to clarify, but thank you for your comment.
Thanks for that.
Thank you, Councillor Abdullah. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? No. Councillor Summer.
Thank you, Councillor Sarley. It does seem a bit unusual to approve something in principle, especially when it's something as solid as a financial statement, but there's really no other way around it. So we have to get it approved by the auditor. We have to put things in there that aren't in there already, but this is how every council does it, I'm told, and this is how we've always done it. So even though it might seem unusual, that is quite acceptable from a governance perspective, according to our staff.
Very good, Councillor Summer. We're all really clear on that. Any other councillors like to speak to the motion? Any closing comments, Councillor Dobson?
Yeah, I just finally remind everybody that this financial report and the one previous was against a backdrop of 0 rate increases for the 2 financial years. Now, that was going to have an impact. We did that on behalf of the community. It did put the organisation under some strain. We appreciate that, and we thank the community for coming along with us. And the other, of course, the big whammy on top of that was the ongoing costings surrounding the floods, and that really that hasn't stopped. So those two big issues, I'd just like to highlight to the community that encompassed within this financial report are those two issues, both of which will have significant financial implications over the next few years, because if you give away 1.75% per year for 2 years rate increases, that does come back to have an effect, not only 1 year.
Point of order, you don't introduce new material in your closing comment.
It's nothing too extreme.
Nothing too extreme, but I think we need to keep that in consideration. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Dobson. Councillors, we will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried, unopposed. Councillors, we now go to page 49 of the agenda, item 12.1, park name, Lance Woodhouse Village Green, Kyla Lakes Estate. There is a recommendation. Can I please have a councillor put that forward as a motion? Councillor Brophy.
Thank you, Mayor Sully. I put forward the recommendation that the council approve the naming of Lance Woodhouse Village Green within Kyla Lakes in accordance with the naming rule for Places Victoria 2016.
Thank you, Councillor Brophy. Can I have a councillor second that motion?
I'd like to second the recommendation as a motion.
Thank you, Councillor Dobson. Councillor Brophy, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Sully. I think this is a fantastic request that's been put forward to naming this particular area and where it is under the name of Lance Woodhouse. Chris Smith and Associates, on behalf of the Cavant Management, have written to Council requesting the naming of the reserve within Kyla Lakes Estate, Kyla, as Lance Woodhouse Village Green, and the name was assessed and in accordance with the naming rules for the Places of Victoria 2016, it ticked boxes in that. So in principle, support was granted for this name request by the Register of Geographic Names. The name was placed on public notice in the Shep News, and there was no submissions that were received in regards to that. Can I just take a moment to reflect on Lance Woodhouse, the man himself? So Lance was a humble, generous and very enthusiastic citizen of Greater Shepparton. Lance was synonymous with leadership and community. Shepparton and the wider Golden Valley is a very fortunate place to live, and to have one person who has really stood out among so many others. It's not just the making of luck. Lance Woodhouse, who passed away a couple of years ago, who was aged 96, was the good of the community, and the Golden Valley is a better place for his wide-ranging good works. Now, I mentioned some of those, which include commencing with the Rotary Club of Shepparton, 56 years of service, with the Shepparton Mechanics Institute involved in its restoration. The Driver Education Centre of Australia, he helped facilitate the original development of that. He was the instigator and one of the instigators of the Shepparton Villages and Tarcoola, certainly a major driver and pivotal in aged care services and projects. The Kyla Lakes Estate and Archers Field in Mooroopna, not only was he the CEO, he was the founding director and chairman of that group as well. He was also instrumental in commencing the Shepparton Theatre Arts Group, which is known as STAG. He was also one of the founders in commencing the International Village. His devotion to his legal firm, Feltham Lawyers, was for over 60 years, still going in at 90 odd years of age. Every morning he was first in of the morning. He really was, and I can mention the National Piano Awards and a whole range of other things, but Lance was one of the great visionaries, was either the founder or was certainly the centre of those organisations throughout his lifetime. And together with his wife Wilma, who currently resides in the Shepparton Villages, they forged a lifetime commitment here to the region. And I know that she supports this particular nomination put forward wholeheartedly.
Thank you, Councillor Brophy. Councillor Dobson, would you like to speak to the motion?
One of the organisations that Councillor Brophy failed to recognise was the Shepparton Theatre Arts Group, the light music company. You mentioned it.
Keep him in line.
Acronym STAG.
Lance was an integral part of that, and he was a delightful person to be around when I was involved in those days. Many years ago, as Councillor Brophy suggested, that the Shepparton Rotary Club at one of their meetings talked about saying that there was no aged care facility in Shepparton. So Lance, along with Keppel Turner, were the two main drivers of getting Tarcoola, now known as Shepparton Villages, put that together. And they went out, and it's still a community, it's a facility. It's owned by the community, so to speak. And the directors there, I've been on that board, and they are community directors, not paid, and they look after it. Not only did they do Tarcoola or Shepparton villages at the north end of Shepparton, they then went down to Kyla Lakes and they put that magnificent development down there for the people who wanted to live in the south. But they weren't content with that. They then went over to Mooroopna and they put together the Mooroopna facility for people in retirement and aged care. And those facilities are continuing to roll over. They've got to update them all the time. So what was, I suppose, a community group, Rotary, Shepparton Rotary, and then founded by Lance Woodhouse and Keppel Turner, we've gone into such one of Shepparton's biggest facilities. Not only is it for the aged care, but it's also a great employer of people, and it's one of our hallmark facilities. So very happy to endorse the Lance Woodhouse Village Green. I think it's quite appropriate that the name Village Green goes with Lance Woodhouse.
Thank you, Councillor Dodson. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Are there any councillors that would like to speak for the motion?
Yeah. Sally, yes, I think everything's been said about Lance. Was truly the youngest 96-year-old that I've ever met. Enthusiasm at that age, and even into his early 90s and late 80s, was quite phenomenal, actually. I couldn't believe he was that old, running around doing developments and getting excited about different things. So if ever a public asset should be carrying the name of someone as special, I think, to our community, I think this is probably one of the best ones I've seen for many, many years. He deserves this as a legacy for his name and his family, so I fully support it.
Thank you, Councillor Adam. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Before I go to closing comments for Councillor Brophy, I'd like to just echo all the positive things that have been said about Mr. Lance Woodhouse. I think this small token of acknowledgement and recognition of the great work that he's done acknowledges his humble personality that Councillor Brophy alluded to. So I commend Chris Smith and Associates for putting this forward, and no doubt this will leave a lasting legacy beyond what is already been in place by Mr. Lance Woodhouse. So thank you. Any closing comments, Councillor Brophy?
Just one final comment was to make mention that, talk about young at heart, at the age of 92, he contemplated signing up for the year program with the Fairley Leadership Program. But I think Wilma talked him out of it.
Very good. Councillors, we will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried and opposed. Councillors, we now go to page 52 of the agenda, item 12.2, Heritage Advisory Committee 2022 Annual Report. There is a recommendation. Can I please have a councillor put that forward as a motion? Councillors? Councillor Sommer.
I will move that the council receive and note the Greater Shepparton Heritage Advisory Committee Annual Report for the year ended 31st of December 2022 as attached.
Councillor, second that motion, please. Councillor Spinks.
Second that motion.
Thank you. Councillor Sommer, would you like to speak to the motion?
I don't have anything prepared, but any opportunity just to extend thanks and gratitude to this committee's work. They are an amazing group. They are a wealth of information, and with council's help, we can hopefully integrate all their knowledge about heritage into the broader community, and therefore we can preserve things better. We can recognise new heritage structures. We can engage our younger people to continue the good work that is being done around heritage. We have old families here that date back from foundation days. We have small towns that all uniquely came about through very different reasons, and it's the structures that are left behind that tell that story. So I'm very proud of that committee, and I think they deserve all our support. If anyone can get the report, I recommend they have a read.
Thank you, Councillor Sommer. Very well put. Councillor Spinks, would you like to speak to the motion?
Only to echo that this particular committee, while all of our committees are fantastic, this one truly is for the council. What they do is incredible. So thank you.
Very good, Councillor Spinks. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? Councillor.
Yeah, just quickly, I also want to congratulate and thank the advisory committee, because the work that they do, and they do it with such passion, and they've got such expertise in heritage matters. They have, they bring all the heritage pride to our community. And I was going through the report, and I've been part of this committee for 3 to 4 years. But now Councillor and Latson is representing us on the committee. This committee, I've worked closely with them, and they do a lot of things from heritage open days to heritage tours, educational visits, promotional video has also been done, and also that the Bruce Wilson Memorial Heritage Lecture, which is always so educational and informative for everyone. So I am very fond of this committee and the members who are sitting on that committee. However, I also want to, I wish and I really would like to see more and more, more and more members from the community and also new faces. Because this committee, hats off to them, they have been working so hard, but I think they need to get support from, from other people as well. So I really look forward to seeing more and more community members joining this committee in future.
Thank you, Councillor Abdullah. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Councillor Latson.
Just like to echo the other councillors' comments and just invite the public to nominate, to join the Heritage Advisory Committee, because nominations are still open.
Very good.
Of all backgrounds and gender and ethnicity, and all ages.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor Latson. Any other councillors like to speak to the motion? Any closing comments, Councillor Summer?
No, thank you, Ms. Ali.
Thank you, councillors. We will now go to vote. All those in favour? Motion carried and opposed. Councillors, we now go to page 55 of the agenda item 12.3, IGA Numerica Road. There is a recommendation. Can I please have a councillor put that as a motion? Councillor Dobson.
Thank you, Mayor Sally. I'll move that the council note that the formal decision in relation to application in brackets 2017-177A /A would have been refused in its current form had an appeal for failure had not been lodged with VCAT due to the following reason: a proposed design produces unacceptable planning outcomes, and 2, an amended permit may be granted should the design shortcomings be generally addressed to the satisfaction of council officers at the VCAT compulsory conference or within the current VCAT proceedings.
Thank you, Councillor Dobson. Can I have a councillor second that motion, please? Councillor Brophy.
I second that motion.
Councillor Dobson, would you like to speak to the motion?
Look, I just want to quote from the executive summary, which I think is it does it very well. This amended application seeks permission for a single-stage redevelopment of the IGA site to include 2 supermarkets, 5,685 square metres of shop floor space, 577 on-site car parking spaces and roadworks to support the proposed redevelopment. The amended application has been advertised to neighbours and 1 objection has been lodged by a competing supermarket developer. The permit applicant has elected to file an application to the Victorian Civil and Administrative Tribunal as the proposal was not decided in the 60-day time frame. The first hearing is set down for 9 October 2023. And finally, the purpose of this particular report is for council to determine its position on the application that will form the basis of council's submission to VCAT, including its position at the VCAT compulsory conference on 9 October 2023.
Thank you, Councillor Dobson. Councillor Brophy, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Sally. Pretty much well summed up by Councillor Dobson. I think the public are probably wondering what this is all about. Really, it's been an issue that's been going on for far too long, to be honest. Some have said to me in regards to it that they see it as a dog's breakfast. I think it's been a bit more complicated than that, just a dog's breakfast. It's certainly been via VCAT, there's been extensions given, plans have been altered, warehousing of permits have been done, and we're still not resolved. I think the resolution, if they want to see more than 1 supermarket, the resolution is that they want to see to be able to provide choice in their shopping. So all planning and residential developments have predominantly been to the north and the south, if you look where they're opening up. And of course, this location is in the north. And the current and maybe small location in terms of retail meterage probably doesn't adequately provide for now, let alone for a higher demand in the future for new families moving into the the area. So something needs to be done in regards to that. There have been a number of unaesthetically developments that have taken place in common areas over the time, and we see this in the past, and it really does contribute to the overall feel of the region if something gets up and it's not that attractive. So I think there's a balance here, the balance between commercially functionality and attractiveness and complicity in regards to making sure it's all ticked off. But these things need to be met, and we need to move on with this.
Thank you, Councillor Brophy. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Are there any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? Councillor Summer.
Thank you, Mayor Sally. Only to say that I hope we can get a resolution very soon so that the good people of North Shepparton can finally get their supermarket.
Very good, Councillor Summer. Thank you. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak against the motion?
Not against.
Okay. Are there any councillors that would like to speak for the motion?
Yes, thank you, Sally. As Councillor Brophy indicated, going on for far too long, almost 15 years. It's like a tennis match, actually. I have my own suspicions about the whole background to this. IGA have had many opportunities over the last 15 years to move ahead with numerous projects. There always seems to be some reason as to why they can't do it, and then they've asked for extensions which have been granted. Now there's this issue, and look, I don't hold much confidence that even if this permit is given, that will happen very quickly anyway. I'm sure there'll be something else in the future that will pop up and put a hurdle in front of this project. So look, as Councillor Summer said, I hope this just gets resolved and moves forward, but I won't hold my breath.
Good, thank you, Councillor Adam. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Councillor Spinks.
Thanks, Mayor Sally. So I think that one of the important bits to highlight is that the reason that we would be denying this application, refusing this application, is because what happened was we put this permit application to an independent assessment, and I think that needs to be highlighted because a lot of the comments around the table even today do show a little bit of not bias, but certainly influence over the history of this particular application. So I think the fact that it has gone out to an independent assessment was an important part of this process to make sure that everybody involved, because it has been a long-standing matter, has been as independent as possible in the decision-making. And it was found that when the assessment came back, there were matters that needed to be addressed to make sure that we're providing Shep North with good outcomes for their community. We know that we want another supermarket up there. We know we want development up there. We are doing all of the strategic work to make sure that happens. But it is one thing to put anything up there. It is another to make sure that we aren't creating further challenges or issues in any spaces that we're granting permits. So the fact that it's gone through this independent assessment, I think, is a very important reasoning and justification for the fact that we are refusing this permit at this time, but it should be very, very clearly highlighted that an amended permit may be granted should the design shortcomings be generally addressed to the satisfaction of council officers. So this is not stopping. We are the closest we've ever been to getting something up there, and I think that if they are able to meet the high but reasonable expectations of any development in that area, then we absolutely would want to see that development occurring in Shep North. We know they need a supermarket. We want them to get what they need, not just an outcome for the sake of a history that's been quite drawn out. So, thank you.
Councillor Spinks, are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Councillor Dobson.
The phrase design shortcomings, which is part of part two, I think is very important. I'd just like to congratulate our planning team in the council for really sticking to their guns, because not only are they wanting this to go ahead to its best advantage, but also for it to look part of the Shepparton, what was presented to us the other day didn't quite meet it. So let's hope that those design shortcomings are sorted out.
Thank you, Councillor Dobson. Councillors, we will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried, unopposed. Councillors, we now go to page 67 of the agenda, item 13.1, Australian Botanic Gardens Shepparton Advisory Committee, appointment of community representatives. There is a recommendation. Can I please have a councillor put that forward as a motion? Councillor Dobson.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Sally. As the chair of this particular group, that the council, one, appoint the following community representatives to the Australian Botanic Gardens Shepparton Advisory Committee. It's a big name. for a period of 2 years commencing 20 September 2023 and concluding 19 September 2025. And the following people are Wendy Moore, Sue Berwick, Mary Jane Taylor, Suzanne White, Kalia Deary, Lee Tague and Jenny Houlihan. To formally acknowledge and thank outgoing members Karen Kilgour, and I would like to speak a bit more about that in a moment, Karen Kilgour, Marilyn Baisley and Audrey Hurst for their outstanding contribution to the committee.
Thank you, councillor Dobson. Can I have a councillor second that motion, please?
Second the motion, Mayor Sally.
Thank you, councillor Dobson. Would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, I've been involved with this advisory committee since day dot, back in the 2010 or whenever it was when it was first mooted. And I've never seen a more enthusiastic and really a group of people to get on and do things. But I've got to say that they've been enthused even more greatly over recent times due to the enthusiastic response from our council's team, Peter, the outdoor staff and the management. And I know we've got people here in the room who should take the kudos for that, but the backing and the work that's being done by the council at the moment with the advisory committee is just great. The advisory committee are now in a position with the Friends to be able to go and do the things they want to do rather than having to repair stuff that goes on. And in the last floods, we all know that the amount of damage that's been done out there was huge. There are 8 people plus myself on this committee. You'll note that there's only 7 names. The 8th person that we wanted on there, if I may say so, was Karen Kilgour. And I'd just like to make the report that, as we know, Karen had some pressures on her life in the last few months with her family and didn't get her application in on time to be qualified for this one. So we will, I hope, be putting out another expression of interest to make up the full complement and Karen can put her name forward. While I'm on it, can I just say to the community and anybody who's watching this, the Botanic Gardens is something that's growing. It's for the environment, it's for tourism, it's for all of those things, and we'll be here for the next 100 years. What we don't want to see is people on motorbikes and push bikes running up and down the hills and making indentations and scarring the works. There are some plants that are rare and endangered within the organisation, within the precinct, and we'd like those to remain there. So this is one of Shepparton's, I think, Greater Shepparton's better community organisations, if I can say that. And I do commend these community members to the council and thank Karen, Marilyn, and Audrey for their work, and hope to see Karen back very soon.
Thank you, councillor Dobson. Councillor Adam, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, just add a few words to councillor Dobson's words. I was actually the council representative for many years on this committee, prior to it being an advisory committee, but the actual Botanic Gardens working group. The work they did was quite phenomenal, actually, physically as well. There's people who were out there doing hours upon hours of work that was not noted, not seen. And only yesterday I had an international traveller here who was alerted to the fact there was a Botanic Gardens here, believe it or not. You know who I'm talking about. And he was recommended by other people who I wouldn't have thought would have even known that he existed, but they encouraged him. He had to go there and see this place. It was fantastic. So it's getting traction, I think, more and more as each year passes by, and as it grows, it becomes more complete, I suppose. It's becoming more popular. So all the power to the committee. Welcome the new people on board, and thank you very much for the outgoing members too.
Thank you, councillor Adam. Are there any councillors against the motion? Any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? No. Councillor Dobson, just some clarification regarding what you can and can't do out there, because Peter Herod, our CEO, has asked if he can take his dog walking out there.
CEO Harriet can take his dog as long as it's kept on a lead, and I'll have council officers out there ensuring that any dogs that are off lead will be accommodated accordingly.
If I may say, I think the mayor needs a family dog.
There we go.
I mean,
I was going to get one, but I knew I couldn't take it to the Botanic Gardens. Any closing comments, councillor Dobson? We'll take
that's all. Just
very good. We will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried, unopposed. Councillors, we now go to page 71 of the agenda, item 13.2, tree management policy. There is a recommendation. Can I please have that
I missed it.
Motion. Councillor Spinks.
I'll move the recommendation to a motion that the council adopt the tree management policy as attached.
Thank you, Councillor Spinks. Can I have someone second that, please? Councillor Brophy.
I second the motion.
Councillor Spinks, did you want to speak?
Just really briefly, this is simply, the current policy is out of date and a revised policy is presented for endorsement. It has very minor changes, by which is purely administrative. There's nothing actually majorly changing in it at all. But I just want to say that I'm so glad we have a tree management policy. Here it says, the tree management policy, good planning and appropriate maintenance are vital for managing street, roadside, park and reserve trees that will provide aesthetic, environmental and ecological benefits to the community. And it may seem pretty standard practice that we would have a policy like this for the sake of just tidying and whatnot. But as I had ping up on my phone that we're going to have our hottest summer yet, trees are going to be more valuable than they've ever been before when it comes to the environment, animals to humans, to the way that we exist in our communities. We have to care about our trees. So I'm going to take this moment to say I'm so glad we do, and I'm so glad that we will continue to. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Spinks. Councillor Brophy, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, fully support Councillor Spinks on the comments there. Absolutely. It's incredibly vital that we do not only have this particular policy in place, but we're aware of it and the community are aware of it as well. Late last year, I was at a local government conference in Sydney, and there were some presenters there that were able to map out and show Greater Shepparton as well in terms of the canopy cover and what we have lost and what we haven't lost, and even prior and from the floods as well. So it's important that we know what we have there. The canopy cover is essential as our temperatures are rising, and with the increased land clearing, it's become even more essential, particularly in this area, because we're just such a flat topography that we've got here, and a lot of it has been pulled down over a long period of time. This management plan is an update, and so that's been recognised as well, certainly needed. Planning and appropriate maintenance is vital, ecologically, aesthetically and environmentally, and I think this ticks the box.
Very good, Councillor Brophy. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? Councillor Adam.
Thank you, Mayor Scully. I just want to note that I'd like to a big thank you to our CEO, because it's been a little bit of a legacy project of his over many years to increase the canopy of Greater Shepparton. I think Peter had a lot to do with this actual policy, so congratulations on that, even though he contradicts his policy sometimes with his choice of front lawn. I won't go into detail about that.
From two tonight. That's good. Very good, Councillor Adam. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Councillor Summer.
Thank you. Must have gone past my attention when it was presented in a briefing, because I don't remember actually discussing it in detail. I think it probably does deserve a bit more of our attention, especially based on the comments around the room today. That was endorsed in 2010, then reviewed in 2017, and then 6 years later, we're doing it again. So there's a big question mark of whether we should have more evergreens to increase the canopy and shade during other seasons, whether we're doing okay with this urban forest strategy, which is entirely separate to the policy, but also complementary. Yes, I have noticed around town that we have blooming trees, which is nice, because we did start this a long time ago, and I've been paying attention to the trees since we reviewed it in 2017, and some of them are reaching maturity, and it just makes it so much more pleasant to see our assets with the shade and walk down the street on footpaths that are concrete with trees above, giving some kind of protection from the weather. And especially the ones down the lake are lovely. The ones down St George's Road are really starting to mature in that middle island there, traffic island. I get very excited about trees. So if we can preserve them, if we can stop pulling them out, especially the old beautiful plane trees, if there is a way to keep them and keep landowners happy at the same time, that would be fantastic. So much to explore. So I'm really excited we still have this in our sights, and I hope for more regular reviews in future.
Very good, Councillor Summer. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Councillor Lansing.
Thank you, Mayor Scully. It was just great to see a lot of National Tree Day participants, and that would tie in with the tree management policy. And Peter was there along with other fellow councillors.
Yeah, it was a good day. Some of us got our hands dirty. Very good. Comments? Sorry, that was you, Councillor.
I move, yeah.
I was coming to you.
Well, I will just say, because I found it interesting, Councillor Summers' comments, I actually called the CEO before the meeting and was like, I don't remember seeing this. But it was not hidden, it simply just slipped my vision, obviously. And I think it's just important off the back of some of the comments that have been said today, all fantastic and all in support of trees, that this is a very just operational policy, and it sits alongside, as Councillor Summer mentioned, around our urban forest strategies, but it sits alongside so many of our other climate-based and environment-based policies that support this work. All of the policies are a part of that work that's being done. So this one's important, and it's really heartwarming to have a moment to celebrate trees around the table. It's great. Yeah, there's so much work being done. This is just one of many different ways that we're doing that. So.
Very good, Councillor Spinks. Councillors, we will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried and opposed. Councillors, we now go to page 74 of the agenda, item 14, confidential management report received. Item 15, documents for signing and sealing nil received. We now go to page 75, which is item 16.1.1, councillor activities, August 2023. There is a recommendation. Can I please have a councillor put that forward as a motion? Councillor Brophy.
Thank you, Mayor Sarley. I put forward the recommendation that the council receive and note the summary of the councillors' community interactions and informal meetings of councillors.
Thank you, Councillor Brophy. Can I have a councillor second that motion? Councillor Latson. Councillor Brophy, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Sarley. This is based obviously on August 2023 and all of the activities the councillors have undertaken in that period of time. And it's a multi-layered facet of activity that was done through that period. And it really falls into probably two categories if I look at it. Bringing people to the region, be it sport and tourism, and also underpinning our responsibilities is the second part there. The first one, there were a number of activities that fell into, sport or tourism, and that was the Hockey Australia Country Championships. So well done, Cam Druitt and the Hockey Association in doing that. The GV Sun Australia Cup game. The season, which was the Destination GV brochure and program. The FIFA Women's Cup with the Matildas playing, which was had on the big screen down at the showgrounds, and of course the Shepparton Running Festival. So a lot of those brought people into the region and also brought tourism into the area as well. The second part was in regards to, there was leadership graduations, there were citizenship ceremonies, there were numerous committee meetings, there was flood outlook and recovery updates, and councillor catch-up in small towns. They're our responsibilities and they're things that we do month to month as well, but very important that they're highlighted.
Thank you, Councillor Brophy. Councillor Latson, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, thank you, Mayor Sarley.
Thank you, Councillor Latson. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? Any closing comments, Councillor Brophy?
No, thank you.
Very good, councillors. We will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried and opposed. Councillors, we now go to page 77 of the agenda, item 17, notice of motion amendment decision received. Item 18, urgent business not included on the agenda, nor received. Any urgent business arising since the agenda? No. Item 19, meeting, which I will do now at 4:47 PM. Thank you. Very good. Well done. Have a good night.